From the moment he was taken, the silence around him grew louder. Enoch, a man who never died, a man so intimate with the divine that God simply took him. No grave, no farewell, just absence, and yet not absence at all. Because he left behind a book, a witness, a warning, a vision too disturbing for the comfortable and too revealing for the powerful. For centuries, the Book of Enoch remained buried, not by accident, but by design. It spoke of things the early world was not ready to confront. A flood foretold before Noah, kingdoms rising and crumbling under angelic judgment, a Messiah described long before the prophets gave him a name, and a final resurrection that would separate light from darkness once and for all. But here is what no one expected. These visions are no longer just ancient pages. They are beginning to breathe, to move, to stir beneath the chaos of our time. Because the world Enoch described is not coming. It is here. Why would a man who never saw death be the one to tell us how the end begins? What did he see? And why was it hidden until now? In this episode, we will journey through 6 prophecies from the Book of Enoch. Some have already come to pass, others are unfolding around us, and a few still wait like shadows on the edge of time. Let us begin with the one that started it all. A prophecy of water, of judgment, of mercy. The flood, the great flood, a pattern of judgment and renewal. Before the first drop of rain fell, judgment had already been declared, not from the clouds, but from the courts of heaven. In the Book of Enoch, the flood is not merely a disaster story. It is a divine reckoning, a reset, a cosmic answer to a world that had fallen into irreversible decay. Enoch saw it all before Noah ever lifted a hammer. He was shown a world corrupted not just by human sin, but by the unnatural unions between celestial rebels and earthly daughters. The offspring of this union, the Nephilim, brought with them chaos, violence, and a distortion of God's creation so deep that it cried out for cleansing. But what Enoch saw was more than destruction. He saw purification, not a wrathful outburst, but a sacred washing. The flood became the world's baptism, a burial of corruption and a birth of something new. It was a pattern that would echo through time. Water would again symbolize cleansing in the days of Moses, again in the Jordan with John, again in the hearts of believers washed by grace. In Enoch's vision, the flood was not just about what was lost, but about what could finally be made right. And so the rain that fell in torrents was not just water. It was verdict. It was mercy wrapped in devastation. A whisper that when judgment comes, it is never without purpose, never without hope, and never without a promise waiting on the other side of the storm. The flood ended, but the pattern it revealed had only just begun. The rise and collapse of world empires, the divine clock behind earthly thrones. Empires do not fall by accident, nor do they rise by the mere will of kings. Enoch was shown what few dare to see, that behind the iron walls of Babylon, beneath the splendor of Rome, and within the strategy of every throne, there were unseen hands moving, angelic watchers, fallen princes, divine judgments marking the boundaries of power and time. He saw history not as a human progression, but as a celestial drama. Every empire that Enoch witnessed rose like a blazing star, proud, expansive, unstoppable. But in every vision, the light would dim. The foundations would crack, not from lack of military strength, but from moral collapse. When injustice reigned, when idols were raised, when the cries of the oppressed reached heaven, divine intervention came not with a sword, but with a limit, The empire would rot from within before it fell from without. Enoch's visions revealed something deeper, that no kingdom can stand forever if it stands against the divine. And yet each fall was not only judgment, but also invitation. An invitation for the next to rule more justly, more humbly. But few listened. The cycle repeated. Even now, in modern corridors of power, the pattern continues. Flags may change, languages evolve, but the spiritual forces remain. Thrones are tested, motives are weighed, and when the balance tips, what once was glorious becomes ruins beneath the dust. Enoch did not only see nations, he saw a divine clock ticking behind them, a holy sequence. And we, whether citizens or leaders, are all counted within its time. From floods to empires, the pattern grows louder. But what if a single figure could break that cycle? What if one man could not only fulfill the ancient visions, but rewrite the end of the story? The coming of the Messiah, a light foretold in deepest darkness. Long before shepherds heard angels sing, long before Isaiah spoke of a child born unto us, Enoch saw him, not by name, but by glory, the elect one, the righteous king, the Son of Man. In the heavenly visions recorded in the Book of Enoch, there stands a figure exalted above the stars, seated beside the Ancient of Days. He does not arrive with noise. He appears with authority, not seized but given, a light not created but revealed. This was no ordinary prophet, no warrior king. Enoch described a being both human and divine one, whose very presence brought terror to the corrupt and peace to the faithful. He would judge angels, heal nations, and restore a world drenched in sorrow. In Enoch's time, such a vision must have seemed impossible. A world that had already seen the flood, that knew the weight of judgment, was now being promised something greater. Not just a second chance, but a final redemption. Centuries later, when Jesus stood among fishermen, when he touched the unclean and forgave the condemned, the prophecy breathed again. And when he called himself the Son of Man, it was not poetry. It was revelation, a direct echo of Enoch's vision made flesh. But prophecy is never only for the past. The Messiah came, but he also returns. And Enoch's vision of the righteous one, judging the nations and restoring all things, still waits its fullness. The light that entered the world once will pierce the darkness again. Only this time not as a suffering servant, but as the reigning king. And if the vision of the Messiah has already walked among us, what shall we make of the next prophecy still standing in the shadows? A day when heaven does not whisper but sits in judgment. A tribunal where angels and men alike are weighed by fire. The final judgment when heaven sits in court. There is a courtroom beyond the stars. No wooden benches, no gavel, just glory and fire. And silence so complete that even the angels tremble. Enoch saw it. A day when every being celestial or earthly would stand before the throne of God. No deception could hide. No excuse could shelter. The watchers, once radiant beings who walked among the stars, now bent low under judgment. Their crimes were not forgotten. Their corruption too deep for mercy. They had led humanity into darkness, twisted creation, and violated the sacred order. But they were not alone. Humans too would be judged, not by the scale of reputation or achievement, but by the unseen weight of every choice. Enoch describes scrolls opened, records read, nothing missed. The judgment was not cruel. It was exact, pure, final. A fire that did not merely burn, but revealed. Those who had walked in righteousness found peace. Those who had aligned with the corrupt found only silence. This vision shakes the soul because it is not just future, It is already forming. The systems of the world groan with injustice. Truth is traded for power. Evil is renamed progress. And yet heaven does not forget. Enoch's tribunal is not a myth. It is a date set in eternity. But even this judgment is not the end. In Enoch's vision, after the verdict comes the renewal. After the fire comes the garden. And it is this promise that gives the next prophecy its light. A revealing not of punishment, but of purpose. A day when what was hidden will be shown. And only those with eyes to see will understand the gift. The unveiling of hidden knowledge, the age of revelation. Not all judgments come with thunder. Some arrive as whispers, as insight given to the faithful, as secrets once sealed, now slowly unwrapped. Enoch's vision did not end with destruction. It moved into mystery. He foresaw a time when hidden knowledge, long guarded by the heavens, would be released to those who walked in truth. Not to scholars, not to the powerful, but to the righteous. This was not knowledge for curiosity. It was revelation for alignment. Divine wisdom meant to guide the remnant through an age of deception. Enoch saw that the mysteries of the cosmos, the structure of heaven, the origin of evil, the laws written in spirit, would be made known. But only to those who sought God with clean hands and an undivided heart. Throughout Scripture, we see glimpses of this fulfillment. Abraham understood things not taught. Daniel was shown visions that sealed until the end. John saw doors opened in heaven. These were not imaginations. They were fulfillments, echoes of Enoch's prophecy. And today we are beginning to witness it again. Ancient texts resurfacing, symbolic patterns emerging, spiritual hunger rising. Truth long hidden beneath tradition and fear is finding its way to those prepared to receive it. Not for pride, but for preparation. Because the knowledge was never meant to remain secret. It was timed, preserved for a generation that would need it. And if this unveiling has begun, then it is a sign that we are closer than we think to the moment when the veil will be torn, not just for knowledge, but for resurrection. When the dead will rise, and the faithful will awaken to glory. The resurrection of the righteous, a final return to glory. Enoch saw the end, but he also saw beyond it. A day when graves would open not in fear, but in triumph. When the faithful, long forgotten by the world, would be remembered by heaven. This was not metaphor, not poetry. It was a promise. The resurrection of the righteous. A moment when death would surrender what it could never keep. In his visions, Enoch described a people called forth from the dust, not as shadows of who they were, but as perfected reflections of who they were always meant to be. Their bodies renewed, their souls in radiant harmony, their communion with God unbroken. They would rise not just into life, but into light, into justice fulfilled, into rest without sorrow. This resurrection was not a return to the old. It was an elevation to something the world has never known. A realm where peace is not maintained by law, but flows like breath. Where time no longer counts down. And where the Messiah himself dwells among his redeemed face to face. But why did Enoch, a man who never tasted death, see this vision so clearly? Perhaps because he already walks where we are called to follow? Perhaps because only one who bypassed the grave could testify to the victory that lies beyond it. This final prophecy is not a conclusion. It is an invitation to live now in the hope of what is coming, to let every moment be shaped by eternity, and to remember that in the eyes of heaven, no act of faith, no hidden prayer, no unseen obedience is ever lost. The visions have spoken. The cycle is nearly complete, and the veil between this world and the next grows thinner with every fulfilled word. There is something haunting about a prophecy that breathes, something sacred in the realization that words spoken thousands of years ago were not meant only for ancient ears. They waited patiently until the world matched their shape, until we were ready to see. The Book of Enoch was never just a forgotten text. It was a mirror, a warning, a window, and perhaps more than anything, it was a reminder that heaven has always been speaking, that judgment and mercy have always walked side by side, that even in a world unraveling, God is never silent. What Enoch saw was not fantasy. It was future, a future unfolding even now, in global unrest, in spiritual hunger, in the silent turning of human hearts towards something eternal. And in this unveiling, we are called to decide not just what we believe, but how we live. Are we building our lives in the ruins of fading empires? Or are we aligning ourselves with the kingdom that cannot fall? These ancient prophecies do not ask us to predict the end. They ask us to prepare, not in fear, but in faith. Because what lies ahead is not simply darkness. It is the return of light, the fulfillment of promise, the gathering of the righteous, and the unveiling of the glory that was never meant to remain hidden. If this journey stirred something in you, let it continue. Like this video, share it with those searching for deeper truth, and subscribe for more sacred investigations into the mysteries of Scripture. In the comments below, share what stood out most to you. Which of Enoch's prophecies speaks most clearly to our time? And what do you believe we're still waiting to see? Your voice matters in this unfolding story. May we each be found faithful when the final word is spoken. And may the mystery draw us ever closer to the heart of God.